Welcome to another episode of the Lords of Consciousness videocast. It is me, Clint, joining you from the park near my house here in Gilbert, Arizona. I wanted to share a couple of thoughts concerning this polarization of the world that we're living in right now. And I recently listened to a video cast from Mark Passio, who, if you don't know his work, I just couldn't more highly recommend Mark Passio. He's one of the most in-depth, knowledgeable people in the truther community, even the spiritual community, the occult community, whatever you want to call it. He's someone who's been at this for a very long time and has just countless hours of lectures, and he is one heck of a researcher. He's somebody who actually was involved in the Luciferian religion, whatever you want to call it, and has, obviously left that now. And so he's someone who has a distinct knowledge of the way the controller class works. And I wanted to share piggyback on some of his thoughts, because he brought up some super compelling points that have been on my mind. And right now we're living in this world, especially here in America, where it's kind of this Trump syndrome, where it's you're either supporting the guy or you absolutely hate the guy with all of your heart. And we are now more polarized as a people than we've ever been, really, at least in the last couple decades, I would say. And if we're trying to push this pendulum towards a greater world of freedom and to remove this corruption that has plagued our planet, we're many ways, many of us are falling into a trap that is not going to make that happen. And many of us are becoming more entrenched in political ideology. Mark Passio says it very well, that government is slavery. And so many of us are buying into this system of either, Trump's a hero, or even the people who hate Trump believe that, the Obamas were good for us, or it doesn't even matter which president it is. Each of them are empire, at the head of the empire. Recently, Abby Martin, who's one of my favorite reporters out there, she has her YouTube channel, The Empire Files, recently came out with a couple videos clearly defining how Trump is advancing the empire, and that he's not here to drain the swamp, and we're going to have mass arrests. And I'm still waiting for those arrests, and they haven't come yet. And until they happen, I guess we'll just believe it when we see it. But everything that we see really is that this is business as usual. And I didn't want to make a video about Trump per se, but I wanted to speak to those who are really giving their faith in another political leader to rescue us, when this whole entire system as it is not our friend. And honestly, a total dissolvement of this current corporate model that is just absolutely has its tentacles throughout the world must go in order for humanity to ever really reach its full capacity, full potential. And I think that's where so many people lose sight of that. In Mark's podcast, he brings up this topic that I've had a lot of thoughts about myself, because I see these kind of two communities, kind of the spiritual community, maybe the New Age community, coming into unison with like the truther conspiracy community. And both sides of both communities come in with strong suits, but often what is very common, and I'm not trying to speak for everyone or trying to categorize people, but in the spiritual community you have a lot of people who really understand the journey of self, the inner journey, healing from past traumas, the expansion of consciousness, the realms beyond the five senses. And that's super important. In fact, it's just absolutely vital. I'm not going to say it's the ultimate most important, but it's an absolute integral part of of this awakening that's taking place on this planet. And then you have the truth or conspiracy community, who understands really well who the enemy is, in a sense. And this is where the spiritual community kind of lacks, because so often we just think everything that's happening on the outside of us doesn't matter, and you're good just how you are. And meanwhile, there really is an enemy, in a sense, that has been really altering and manipulating this planet. And many people in the spiritual community will buy into there is a government solution to this. You know, if I vote for a good progressive guy, then that'll do it. And that ain't it either. And, you know, but the problem in the conspiracy truther community is you'll see a lot of people who understand the political corruption very well. They understand the occult in terms of that which has been hidden from us, but they don't get that inner journey as well. And you see a lot of that, you know, it becomes very polarizing in that community as well. And I've seen it with this QAnon phenomenon. I've seen it with truther community turning into these like hardcore right-wing conservative types, and that's not really the path we need to go either. And yet, if we can kind of like mesh the two communities in a more symbiotic way, I think we're going to eventually get towards a greater solution of self-empowered people who don't buy into this system anymore, but who also are aware that this system has greatly ill-affected this planet. And I think that's really kind of the path we're on right now. And unfortunately, there's just such a polarization. I have so many of my friends from the spiritual community who are just absolutely ravaged by this whole Trump presidency, and who just are blinded with rage, and it's understandable. And I'm not saying that what they're upset about isn't real, but it's, you know, there isn't Bernie Sanders or type of characters aren't going to be the solution to that. And we still each of us have to realize that this big system government is not our friend, and we need to transcend that. And I think that really comes from becoming more independent human beings as individuals and as small communities. And the less dependency that we have on this big monstrosity, the more powerful we will be. Because as it stands right now, I don't think, you know, the vast majority of people are still bought into this paradigm. And so we're only talking about very few people who are even comprehending what I'm saying. You can see that by how many people even view this video, or even Mark Passio's video, who has a much greater reach than even I do. And yet even him, or any of the biggest names in the truther or spiritual communities, it's still just so minuscule in the grand scheme of things. PewDiePie puts out a video and it'll be millions and millions and millions, and that's kind of really the state of the collective consciousness at the moment. So anyway, I mean, why do I put these videos out in general, and why do I do the interviews that I do? And I mean, I'm not under an illusion that it's gonna create massive change today or tomorrow, but I suppose by putting these videos out, it's kind of like a record for the future. Maybe my kids will know where their dad or grandpa or great-grandpa or great-great-grandpa stood on these things. And I'm definitely, I have full conviction though that we are going to get this right. I don't know how. I don't know what variables are going to take place, and that will help change this thing and make this shift happen quicker. But I definitely am one that truly believes and I do have a conviction that there is a global shift taking place. And I think that a lot of this polarization that's going on is all a part of the spiritual process. Someone like Trump, for example, is just a mirror in many ways to bring out that which was already there within people. The Me Too movement and the indigenous people's history and awareness, that is coming back up, and so many things are coming up in the collective that need to be resolved. And it's not that I'm losing hope because of this polarization, it's just that I think it's just all a part of the process. I'd be curious to know what you guys think. Let me know your opinions on this, if you're seeing similar threads through these communities and the melding of these communities, where we're going from here. But I really appreciate it. Talk to you soon.